All right. Hello. It's June 10th. It's my best friend from childhood's birthday today. It's always a special day because we always celebrate it. I actually talked to her earlier today. And just want to recognize that birthdays are a great reason to connect with people and a great reason to pick up the phone and call old friends. And she's my very best friend in the world, and she's not enrolled to me. She's not enrolled with doTERRA. And it's okay. We can connect with people on with people on other things. It doesn't always have to be about doTERRA when we reach out to people. So love reaching out to people on their birthdays and really just letting them know that we really care, because we do. So tonight's chapter, this is actually the final chapter of Get Off the Bench. And this one's on presentation skills. So I feel like he kind of jumps around a bit in this and kind of in the book, which makes me feel really good because I know I kind of jump around in my brain sometimes and when I talk. And but this one is mainly, there's a lot on presentation skills and there's a lot on just staying motivated as we wrap up this book. So I love the quote that starts with this one. I feel like it's just really, really important to remember. The quote is, communication is a skill that you can learn. It's like riding a bicycle or typing. If you're willing to work at it, you can rapidly improve the quality of every part of your life. So one thing that I've really noticed with network marketing is it has improved my communication dramatically. I can still be shy. It's not that I'm not shy. I have to kind of force myself to speak up sometimes, and I've realized that there's power in that. Once you speak up, you just feel stronger. So with communication, it can be really something that you might need to learn. So if you feel like it is a weak point for you, maybe you were brought up in a home that didn't have the greatest example of communication. That's definitely my story. My parents still don't really communicate very well. I'm just like, just say what you mean, and like, they just have never figured that out. But it is something that can be learned. So the oil I want to mention tonight is Clary Calm. This one is a great one to use at certain times of the month, like right before you start your period or really all the way through that time. And it's also a great one for stress and anxiety. I had a really powerful experience with this once when I was earlier in my business. I was going to meet with a business builder and a potential business builder. And this is someone who had already been earning six figures. And I was really pretty nervous to meet with her because I wasn't sure what I was going to bring to the table. And I put this on. I was driving to meet her, and I really could feel, like within 30 seconds, I felt a powerful shift. So this one's very similar to Serenity, except that it has oils for hormone balance in there. So it's a great one if you're dealing with any sort of hormonal imbalance or any sort of stress or anxiety. Love this one. Okay, so let's talk about public speaking. So he says something along the lines of, public speaking, many people would rather die than speak in public, which is really surprising to me. I guess it's true. We hear that pretty often, that it is pretty common for people to be very scared of public speaking. But the good news is it gets easier over time. And he talks about how the worst thing that can happen in a class is that someone leaves. And I've actually had that happen before. I wasn't hosting. Another girl on my team was hosting. And this woman just was like, I can't take these smells. I have to go. So it was like, if that's the worst thing that happens, she just was getting overwhelmed by the bottles we were passing around. Most people love it, but she didn't. And she let us know that she wasn't interested. And it was honestly, it was not fine in the moment. We were both a little upset. We were both like, oh, what just happened? But Justin spends it in a really good way. She was uninterested. We don't want to waste any more of her time. And looking back, I'm really grateful that I didn't try to chase her down and try to get a straight answer from her. She was very upfront with us. She was like, no, thank you. It's not my thing. And she left. So when you are, when you're teaching, all you can do is deliver the most impactful and effective presentation you can. That's all you have control over. And that's a lot of control. If you're making something very impactful, very effective, then this presentation that you're doing is going to really have an effect on people, and they're really going to be curious. And that's really all we want to do in a presentation, is just pique curiosity for the most part. I mean, yes, we want to teach them how to be safe with oils, and we want to teach them what oils can do, but it's more important to just get them really curious and get them open to trying the oils if they haven't tried them already. Ideally, they have tried an oil sample before class, but not always. I know it's not always possible to get an oil sample in everyone's hands and have them have a powerful experience with it. But people are initially going to be more drawn to you based on your passion for the oils than for your knowledge. And I know for sure when I first started, I started with the family physician kit back then. Now it's called the Family Essentials. 5 milliliter top 10 oils. That's all I had. And I ran out of them very quickly. I remember teaching a class and I basically had empty bottles of oil. So I didn't have a lot. I didn't have a lot of knowledge. I didn't really know all the ins and outs of doTERRA. I didn't know how ranks worked. I didn't know much at all, except that I knew these oils had made such a difference in my family's life over the 3 months that I'd been using them. And I had such passion that I wanted to tell the world. So passion will go very far for you, but we don't want to be too passionate. So just 2 weeks ago, I had a one-on-one and I thought it went great. I thought we were really connecting. And then she sent me an email later that evening and she was like, "Thanks for your time. I'm not going to move forward with you." And I was like, "Well, that's strange. I don't know what happened." And so I asked her, I was like, "Well, have you found some different solutions for your autoimmune disease, for your pain, for your 4-year-old granddaughter's freakouts that she keeps having?" And she was like, "No, I found a different person." She found a different doTERRA person over the course of like 8 hours. And I do know that she had already bought some oils from someone else. So I wasn't really sure. I asked her, she said that she wasn't really connected with that person anymore. But basically, thinking through and reading this book, everything clicked together. I think I was just too passionate that day. I was just really feeling like I was on fire about the oils, which you think could be a good thing. And it can be for some people, but we need to find that balance of being really passionate and really helping, and then stopping to ask questions and stopping at a certain point. So we really don't want to ever talk more than like 45 minutes with someone, whether it's in a class. And I would even say a one-on-one, you could even go shorter than that. You could be like 20 to 30 minutes is the oil part. And then you're just sitting back answering their questions and really trying to not go off on tangents. Like it's so easy to do when we know so much and when we are really passionate about something. So at class, only cover the basics, 45 minutes, then dismiss. And then the real learning and the real magic happens, because the initial class, the initial part you're teaching is only meant to engage people and hook their curiosity. But then the interested people will hang out. They'll stay. So it might end up actually being a 2-hour class, but you were only really teaching for 45 minutes. And then the people who aren't interested, they kind of are like, okay, I got to get my kids to bed, or I need to go to the store, whatever the excuses they always give us. But the interested people are there and they're hanging out because they want to, not because they need to. So do you see the difference there? Whereas, we're still teaching for 2 hours, but we're just giving people the option to leave if they need to after about 45 minutes. Just getting through the natural solutions handout or the emotions handout or whatever you're teaching off of, getting through that within 45 minutes, getting through the kits definitely before 45 minutes. I know it's challenging, but it's something that if you're not doing it, just really work on being concise in your presentation and work on being concise in your teaching, because you'll feel it in the room. People start to get disinterested. They'll lean back. They'll be looking at their phone. It's like we don't want that moment to come before we talk about how to buy. It's really important. Okay. My notes just got all jumbled. Okay, here we go. So another thing he talks about a lot is to communicate with the oils. So I know, at least I'm pretty sure that most of us already do this, but he gave an example earlier in the book of someone who was really scared to let people use their oils. They actually took the lid off in this class and just passed the lid. They're like, just smell the lid. And that's not what we want to do with people. I know that especially when you're first getting started, you can just see your oil bottles just going down and it's like, oh, I need that too. But just trust that people need to get the oils on them. They need to smell them. They need to hold them. They need to be able to drip them in their hands or roll them on their wrist. And that's really going to help them have that oil experience, that it's going to really hook their curiosity and keep them really interested and keep them in a place where they're probably going to buy. So another thing that's really important to do, we talk about this a ton, so this isn't new information, but it's always good to say this again, but we always want to uncover a need that our person has. Each person that we invite to class, we want to know what their top 3 health concerns are. And that's why I love the Natural Solutions class, because it asks people, what are 3 things you want more of? What are 3 things you want less of? So that really opens up conversation. And I would say, though, that it's important to, if someone's open, and this is really something that you can really do well in a membership overview, but they mention those top 3 things, and that might not really be it. It might be really something that's more embarrassing, or more that's something that they don't really want to talk about in public. So that's why a lot of times I just am like, a lot of people want less stress, a lot of people want more focus, a lot of people want less cravings, like things that everyone wants for the most part, but are just kind of more socially accepted than, like, I mean, I've had crazy things, like people are really struggling with their health and they're really looking for solutions for these embarrassing problems, like I don't know, abscesses in the buttocks area. I've definitely had that. There's just things that people probably aren't going to mention in a class. So it's really important to say things, and a class setting probably isn't the right setting. Like I said, it's probably the membership overview. Is there anything else? Is there anything else? And then getting a resource in their hands so that they can look it up and they don't even have to tell you what's really going on if it's really something that they're really embarrassed about. So this is when we're giving someone a resource, that can be an example of calling in an expert. So an expert doesn't have to be a person. It absolutely can be. And just remember that an expert is just someone who knows more than the other people in the room about a subject. It doesn't have to be someone who knows every single detail of essential oils, because I don't even know that Dr. Hill knows everything about essential oils. But when we call in an expert, whether it be a person, an oil guide like the Essential Life book or the A to Z guide, or some form of media like a YouTube video from doTERRA, these can all be really helpful things that just help move people along the journey and get them closer to making a purchase. And then he talks about the geranium effect. And I had never heard of this. Actually, I had, because I'd read this book a couple times, but it had left my brain. I couldn't remember what it was. But if you're not familiar with the geranium effect, basically, that's just staying out of the way of when your expert is teaching. So let's just say, for example, that we got Haley Hobson to come teach at one of our classes, which is definitely possible. She's told me to ask her, and I don't take her up on it. So I definitely should. We could very well have her at one of our classes at some point. It would be very important for me not to interject my opinions and not to even asking for a lot of clarification. I mean, I think a little here and there is fine, but it's just when you're interjecting opinions and asking questions over and over again, this can actually undermine someone's credibility. So we want to, if we have a guest speaker, if we have an expert, we really just want to sit back and be a geranium and just soak up their light, soak up the sun. And that way, if people are seeing that you have no reason to interrupt, they're going to trust that expert even more. Does that make sense? It's something that I had never really thought through. I have actually been in an experience where I was called in to teach, and I was interrupted over and over again with like things that I wasn't saying, and things that, like, definitely things that I could have added on, but I wasn't going in that train of thought. And it did feel really disempowering to me. I was just like, what am I doing here? Why am I even here? Why did I even get asked to speak? So it's kind of just a heads up. When you have a guest, just let them do their thing. And then you can come in at the end and be like, okay, I really want to mention, I loved how you talked about how we need to dilute essential oils. I just want to mention that when we are using oils on kids, we want to dilute them even more. Just things like that. Like, let them wrap up their thoughts, and then you can go in and talk about things that you thought they left out. And then he talks about positivity, and I found this so interesting. He says that the default for human attitude is negativity. I definitely see that my kids, my 10-year-old especially, he can get in a really negative place. So it was good to read that this is actually the default. It's actually normal for us to be negative. I know that there's been times in my life when I've been negative, and you can probably think of plenty of examples in your own life too. But what we need to be careful of is that, well, I guess more it's what we need to remember is that we can choose to be positive, and you can make that choice a reality. It's going to take training. It's going to take practice. It's not something that we can just sit back and live a standard American life, just consuming sitcoms and consuming the news and consuming whatever comes up on our social media feed and expect to be a positive person. You would have to be an anomaly and really have to be someone who's just really wired to be positive to really stay positive, especially when you're doing network marketing with all the ups and downs and with all the stigma that still comes with our profession. We have to be feeding our minds a steady diet of positive, however you can find that. And he says that you actually need a 3-to-1 ratio of positive to negative. And this is true in relationships too. It's true in marriages. So we need more positive than negative. 2-to-1 is languishing, and 1-to-1 qualifies as depression. So if you're just breaking even, if you're just getting as much positive as you are negative, you're going to be depressed. So this is really important that we read books that really motivate us, that we listen to podcasts. Like I said, however you find your positivity, if you're listening to positive music, really, really important to keep that positive train of thought coming in. And then to wrap up the book, he talked about a story that's actually in Think and Grow Rich. So if you've read that book, this is going to sound familiar. That's actually one that I haven't read yet. So this was new to me, but it's actually a story about a man who found gold in Colorado. And this was back in the day, back in gold rush days, when they're actually like drilling with their hands, like using a pick. But these guys found this vein of gold, and they were just digging the gold out. They were making a lot of money, but they had a lot of expenses because they had bought all this equipment to mine the gold. And just when they were about to break even, the vein of gold stopped. And they were like, okay, we're going to keep going. We're not going to stop yet. And they kept going a little bit more, and then a little bit more, and then a little bit more. And they were like, I'm done. I'm giving up. We're going to sell all of our equipment to a junk man for $100. We're going home. We're finding a different line of work. And the junk man called in an expert. He called in someone who could look into the mine and see what was going on. Look into, another way of thinking is finding someone or finding a different train of thought, someone that can look into our business and see what's going on. So the expert found that the vein continued just 3 feet from where they stopped. So he dug another 3 feet, took him like a day or two, and then that mine went on to produce millions in gold. So that's just kind of an example of how easy it is to quit when we feel like things are going in a way that's not what we expected, when we start to feel defeated, when we start to feel like it's not working. And we never know if we were just to enroll 3 more people or work for 3 more months or whatever a similar thing is. You never know what's going to happen in the future in your business. So I'm going to end with a quote because I just felt like this was really, he said it really well. Before success comes in any man's life, he is sure to meet with much temporary defeat and perhaps some failure. And I would say absolutely, we're all going to fail as we're finding success with this. He goes on to say, when defeat overtakes a man, the easiest and most logical thing to do is to quit. That's exactly what the majority of men do. People in general think that failure is an indication that they've taken a wrong turn somewhere. This is not true. Failure is part of success. You will have both if you keep going. Stay strong and remember your whys, and your success will be unlimited. And I want you to know that I was just earlier today, I was over at Haley's house for something, and there was another diamond there. Leslie Gale was there. And Haley and Leslie both were just talking about how in their business, it's just always something is falling apart. There's always something that they're figuring out how to lift back up and how to string back together. But they're also having a ton of success with this business at the same time. So Justin had this cool, these pictures here. So I think you'll be able to see these. So most people think it's either failure or it's either success, that it's one or the other. It's like you're either a failure at something or you're a success at something, and it's just one or the other. But actually, he says, there's people who are average, and then there's people who have success and failure. And we have to have both. We have to be ready to have a lot of failure at this business to be able to find that balance of success as well. And then he wraps up this book with a lot of different quotes from leaders, just diamond tips from doTERRA Diamonds. I'm not going to read any of those, but if you have the book, it's definitely worth looking at those. And then he talks about a suggested reading list. So I'm just going to go through these and tell you the ones that I've read and the ones that I've really found to be life-changing. So he starts off with Making the First Circle Work. It's tiny. You could read it in like not long at all, like maybe an hour. I don't know. It's really short. I actually have it somewhere. But making the first circle work is the idea that you are the first circle in your business. You're the top of your tree. How do you make yourself do the work that you want others to duplicate? The Slight Edge, I hope you guys have heard me talk about that book before. That book, that definitely changed my life. It's about how we're either moving in one direction or the other in our life. And it's just that slight edge of moving in a positive direction that keeps our business growing and keeps our life going in a healthy way and keeps us being the type of person that we want to be when we're old. Think and Grow Rich, like I said, I've never read that. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I should read that again. I read it a long time ago. The Richest Man in Babylon. Have any of you read that? That was one that my husband and I were at my parents' house, and my dad actually had 2 copies on his bookshelf, which I found pretty interesting. And then just the name, The Richest Man in Babylon. It's like, I don't even know what this book could be about. And I picked it up and I was hooked from like the first page. If you haven't read that one, that's definitely another one I would put at the top of your list. It's very short as well. And I honestly can't remember all of it. I do remember that it's a lot about being financially savvy and just really being a good steward of the resources that you have. But it's another one it's like I said, top of your list. The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership is the next one by John C. Maxwell. Really long. I skimmed that one. But if you're looking for you're going on a boring vacation where you won't have internet, I would say a relaxing vacation when you don't have internet for 10 days, take that one with you because it's really long. Beach Money, Start with Why, Millionaire by Halftime, Be Our Guest, and Smart Couples Finish Rich. I haven't read any of those, so I can't speak to any of those, but those are all on his list as well. I'm thinking Haley's in Beach Money, isn't she? Maybe her story's in there. She's in one of them. But that is all for Get Off the Bench. I thought this was fun, going through a whole book and having different people read different chapters. So if y'all want to do more of this, and maybe we could do some things that aren't doTERRA specific, maybe we could do ones that are really short. But I do want to move into the sales guide moving forward on our calls. If you haven't looked at that, which if you're anything like me, it's like, oh yeah, I'm meaning to look at that, but I really need to set aside time. So I'm thinking on these team calls, we can just work through the sales guide. So if you're not familiar with the sales guide, it's the newest guide that we have, and it really teaches us how to sell, because we have to know how to sell ourselves, how to sell the oils, how to sell loyalty rewards, how to sell lifelong vitality. We need to know how to sell all these things if we're going to really find long-term residual income with this. We need to know how to sell the business, of course. So the sales guide is basically a journal that we go through and we rate ourselves in different areas so we can figure out where we're missing, where we need to improve the most. So that's what I'm thinking for our next few calls at least. But that's all I have for tonight. So if anyone has anything to jump in on, presentations or failures or any of those books, if you've read them, feel free to jump in. Thanks for being on. My dinner's about ready and my baby is someone about to talk? Is that you, Jessica? Maybe not. I thought you were unmuting yourself. Okay, I was just giving her another minute because I know sometimes these phone calls you can't always talk. So if you're trying to talk, just text me and we can talk later, and I can put comments in the recording post on our Facebook group. But thanks you guys for being on, and just remember that it takes failure and success to find success in this business. So I'll talk to y'all soon. Bye.
Thanks, Brittany.